Hey everyone, Stalky Boy here, and people hate this movie. And sure, it's the worst sequel if you ignore Halloween 6, Halloween 5, Halloween Resurrection, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. You know, if you ignore about half of the movies, sure, it's the worst. And it's the worst interpretation of Myers if we just ignore Hobo Myers, the brother-sister plotline, the stupid cult, Myers listening to Busta Rhymes and then proceeding to lose to Busta Rhymes. So if you ignore just about every single movie after the original, actually no, this movie is one of the best interpretations of Myers we've had in a while. Now before we really dig into this big old slice of pumpkin pie, I want to clarify a few things. 1, this is my opinion. I'm not attacking you. 2, I don't think Halloween Kills is a masterpiece. I just think it's extremely overhated. And I would argue that it's a good movie. Hear me out. This interpretation of Myers is pretty close to the original. It feels like a very natural progression to the Michael Myers character. There's still a ton of mystery around the character, which is what makes Myers special. We don't know what he's thinking, making it hard to know who's safe or not. Since Myers isn't just going directly his sister or his niece or whatever, he doesn't have a very concrete goal, which makes it a lot more unpredictable. Yes, we learn he enjoys returning home, but that doesn't mean he doesn't kill around the area. This is exactly what Myers did in the original. He goes home and reminisces on his first kill, Judith. Which is why he favored Laurie a little more in the original, because she reminded him of Judith. So it makes sense for him to not care at all about Laurie in this new timeline. She doesn't look anything like Judith anymore. Laurie legit chases Michael around town screaming his name, shoots him in the shoulder, and he just walks away in 2018. He couldn't care less about Laurie here. Out of all the sequels in the Halloween franchise, this new 2018 timeline is the only one that gets Myers' actual motive correct. That being, he just wants to kill. His exact motives aren't entirely clear, other than he most certainly enjoys it. Unlike Jason, Myers doesn't always just have the bodies pop out and spook the final girl. And while he does do that, he's always enjoyed decorating them and appreciating them as some sort of art project. A lot of the past sequels seem to forget this little detail and just have Myers as a sort of Terminator. He just kills them and leaves them there, having no fun with it in the process. In the new timeline, Myers is back to his old self, mischievously dressing up and doing some extremely sadistic things. That is one way to remind someone to go to the dentist. In Halloween Kills, we see a bit of this Terminator Myers, but there's a reason for it. This Myers is a little upset that he was trapped inside a burning house. For the first 2 Myers encounters, he doesn't dress anyone up, move any bodies in creative ways. He forces a wife to watch as he profusely stabs her already dying husband, leaving her to slowly die. Which is, believe it or not, uncharacteristic of the Myers we see in 2018 and the original. He's played with his victims, but he typically always finishes them off unless you happen to look like Judith. He spends no time hiding in the shadows as well, he just gets right to business. These initial killings are definitely just him blowing off steam. In the very next scene, he's back to his old self, decorating bodies, and by the end of the movie, we have him hiding in the shadows again. If there's one thing this movie gets right, it's Myers. But it gets more than that right. One thing it vastly improves on over 2018 are the characters. I love every single character in this movie, Lonnie being my favorite. But it also had me liking Cameron after the horrible stuff he did in 2018. A lot of the smaller characters are also really likable. Little John and Big John, the bartender's pretty funny, the cosplay couple, Karen becomes likable, Laurie's great, Hawkins is awesome, Allison is better in this movie, Lindsay, the older couple. I could see why some people wouldn't like Tommy, but I find him to just be a big old teddy bear trying to be tough. A lot of his dialogue is hilarious, trying to talk himself up, and of course the main character of the film we've already talked about. And speaking of that, who is the main character? It's Michael Myers. That's why we're introduced to so many new characters with experiences with Myers. We slowly build up an idea of the shape, a lot of them having new pieces for the character to add. some having misconceptions about the character, we learn something new about Myers in nearly every other scene in this movie. In the first scene with the fireman, we were reminded that there's something abnormal about this man. He's not completely human. Fireman hoses can rip off skin, and he walks right through it and proceeds to kill all of these firemen. In the very next scene with the Shape, we are reminded that while he is capable of near inhuman feats, he is still mortal to some degree. You can hear him bandaging himself up in the older couple's bathroom. This shows the audience that it's not a fruitless endeavor to attempt to kill the Shape. In the same scene, we see the more sadistic side of Myers I mentioned earlier. The next scene with him, we see preteens are not safe from him, and we see him dressing his victims up, reminding us of his sick enjoyment with the whole murder thing. Also, we know he was playing peekaboo with the kids apparently. He could have killed them at any moment, but decided to just pop in and just say hi. Man likes to have his fun. He did a lot of that in the original too. We also learn he really likes his mask. We already got a degree of understanding that he liked his mask. I mean, he hunted it down as soon as he got out in 2018. But there's more emphasis put on his mask with Lindsay attempting to take it off. And he actually ends up losing her because he values putting his mask on first. This will come into play later in the movie. In the next scene with Myers, we see him sneak past Little and Big John extremely silently and very quickly, once again establishing the supernatural edge that Myers has and showing him seemingly remembering the Judith murder, which was also shown in the flashback scene. And for the final scene, we see him playing with his victims with music, and also putting Lonnie up in the attic, having his victim look up when he shows up right under his nose, showing his intelligence. When Karen shows up, we once again see a demonstration of his intelligence. When she stomps him in, we see him fake his death, but as soon as his mask is taken off, he immediately gets up. In the final scene, we see a culmination of what we've learned of the Shape in this movie. In the very first scene with Myers in this movie, we see that Myers gives up when he doesn't think he can win a fight. When he's surrounded by the residents of Haddonfield, we see him look around. He's looking for guns. I'll explain how we know this later. And unlike before, he doesn't stand around knowing he can't win. This time he picks up his mask. He knows he's already won. He sets out one goal here: get rid of the guns. He knows there are only 2 people with guns here, and we see him directly target the man with the gun, making him panic and use all of his bullets. Now he knows there's only one other guy that can finish him off. Then he lets them believe they've won, letting them knock him down and thinking they've killed him. He builds up their confidence enough to get close and finish him off. He hears Brackett ready his gun, and he attacks. These people have seen this man take the beating of his life and get back up. He knows this move will drop their confidence and shake them up. We get an emphasis of the empty chamber from this dude's gun. The director wouldn't have put emphasis on this for no reason. He could have had Myers just swipe at him, no empty chamber noise, but he goes out of his way to make sure the audience knows it's empty. This, combined with Myers looking around before putting on the mask, tells me that this was Mikey's plan from the start. From this scene, we can see Michael's mortality from his concern of guns. We see his incredible supernatural durability. We see his extremely high intelligence. We see him have his odd, childlike sense of fun with the mask. We know the mask doesn't give him powers. He does just fine without them. But from his perspective, it's like a kid putting on a superhero costume. It makes him feel powerful, but it's not his source of power by a long shot. After this, we once again see his incredible stealth capabilities, sneaking around the back of the Myers house without alerting a single soul, and ending with the death of Karen in Judith's room, which I think is awfully poetic because she compared herself to Judith earlier. This Myers characterization is not only from the Myers scenes, but the scenes with Myers all follow the show don't tell rule. With all of the scenes with Laurie and friends, we learn more about the Shape from stories and are a lot more on the nose with what they are trying to tell the audience. I'm not going to go into all of them because it'd take way too long, but most of their dialogue just clarifies stuff we already knew through actions. It's more of a yes, you were right to the audience. The big one that some people have problems with is that Laurie is just another face for Myers. I already talked about the Judith similarities and why she mattered in the original, so I won't go into detail again, but we can see from 2018 that he doesn't really care about Laurie through his actions. In Kills, we just get confirmation that this is the case. This film is all about Myers. He is the main character. 2018 was Laurie's movie. This one belongs to Myers. It's why she takes a back seat. We already had a bunch of time with her in 2018, and Kills introduces way more characters, so Laurie had to take a bit of a back seat. In a movie about Myers, it makes sense for her to take a back seat. She herself has very little meaning to Myers, so it wouldn't make sense for her to have the forefront of a Myers movie. Judith has meaning to Myers, not Laurie Strode. Before I get into more as to what I think the movie does right, I want to clarify that this movie is not perfect and absolutely has flaws. I think at times it feels like it's really poking at the audience, just being like, hey, remember this? Remember, don't forget this. I hate how much they bring up 40 years ago. Like, they specifically say 40 years ago over and over. Some people are annoyed with the evil dies tonight chant. I think it sounds cool, so I don't mind, but I think the hospital scene is a little overboard, and I think it should have been toned down just a little bit. I feel there are way too many people in the hospital at the time. I think it makes sense for them to freak out against the Cobblepot looking guy. I know a lot of people think it's dumb that they get confused, but they don't know what Michael looks like. Yes, there is the TV, but if you pay attention to the TV, it doesn't have their names next to their picture. So in their head, Michael Myers is just some dude that just escaped, and this dude looks pretty off. He's a little strange. The movie is clever enough to block him from the sight of the characters that would know what he looks like. Even so, I think it's just a little too much. I think there was a much more subtle way of going about it. I think it would have been much more effective if Tommy just got a call with the people being like, hey, we got him. Tommy drives over and is like, no, you idiot, this isn't him. Much more subtle and less in our face. And talking about less in our face, the end speech. Laurie's end speech is way too on the nose. I hate it when movie writers think we can't just put the pieces together. Just let the scene speak for itself. I think we also could have done with this chase scene breathing a bit more. It's a phenomenal moment of tension, fantastic scene, but it needed a little bit more time to breathe. I think a lot of people are too harsh when it comes to the characters' decisions in this film. Haddonfield receives so little action. Characters making absolutely terrible decisions in life or death scenarios make sense. For example, one a lot of people point to, why doesn't the nurse just wait for Myers to get out of the car to shoot him? A lot of people seem to forget that her husband is still in the car. She doesn't know he's dead yet. She would want to get Michael out of there ASAP. And we see Myers actually making an effort to dodge the gunfire. However, she does sort of just disappear after being kicked out of the car for a bit. That is strange. Brackett did not shoot him from a distance. Brackett has a very personal vendetta against Myers. Michael killed his daughter Annie in the original, and they bring it up in Kills to foreshadow to this moment. It makes sense for him to get all up close and personal. He's played this moment of vengeance in his head thousands of times, no doubt. He wants to savor every little bit. Little John freezing up. It's established from the tension scene before that he's a little scaredy cat. The elderly woman freezing up. This is a legitimate reaction that a lot of people have to terrifying situations. People do freeze up. She's also older and might know she won't make it very far. We also see earlier that she asks her husband what Myers wants. She might be the type that hates physical conflict, so instead she tries to reason with him. Why don't all the firemen just attack Myers at once? They just saw a dude leave this burning building, smoke everywhere, move right through a fireman hose like it's nothing, and make a human shish kebab. A lot of these firemen must be terrified. That doesn't happen every day. And afterwards, they might have attempted to all go out on him. But as we see later, he's very good at dealing with melee weapons. There is one really stupid decision that I can't defend. Lonnie not waiting for backup. This is extremely dumb. I don't know why he wouldn't wait for backup. It doesn't make any sense. But I feel people over-exaggerate a lot of the other stupid decisions that happen in this film. And are a lot of these completely realistic? No, of course not. You have to give the movie a little bit of disbelief going in for sure. But the movie does attempt to give solutions for most of these issues that people seem to just ignore. or don't notice. Also, some of the dialogue delivery is a little weird. Most of it is fine, but there are moments that have me chuckle. I wouldn't say it's bad, it's just funny. It personally increases my enjoyment for the film a little more. I like a little bit of slice of cheese here and there. Now for the rest of the characters. We are introduced to a lot of legacy characters, and unlike a lot of other horror franchises, Scream, it has the balls to kill them. It doesn't give them you're a character people know and like, you get a live pass. Which is why Laurie is also out of this movie. You can't just have Laurie be an immortal presence in this film knowing there's a third movie. She'd be a walking safety blanket. It keeps the audience on their toes, wondering who will make it out. And it does show Lindsay escaping, so we know there's a chance to escape this killing machine, but it's a very slim chance. As I mentioned earlier, I would say all of the characters are written in a very likable manner and interact with each other well. It's very easy to get a basic idea as to what they are about. Lindsay is the baby of the group. She's a sweetheart. Tommy's the ringleader for sure. He has the best intentions for everyone at heart and wants to believe that there's a way to defeat the Shape. Whenever someone acts up and loses confidence, he calms them down and gets them focused. Lonnie serves as a little comedy relief, but he's not just that. We see him be a loving father towards Cameron. Robert Longstreet's performance is amazing as Lonnie. We see the good qualities to Karen in this film, trying her best to keep her family safe, even if it means a little bit of lying. But she has the best intentions at heart. Marion doesn't really have any traits that stand out a ton, but she's not terrible. You don't hate her. Characters I would like to turn some attention to: Little John and Big John. This is how you write gay, straight, lesbian, or any other character, like an actual person. They are so likable because they work so well off of each other. They have actual personalities and are just written as humans. Little John is basically Luigi and Big John is Mario. I am tired of gay characters being written like the only thing of value they have to offer is that guy likes guy or girl likes girl. They are just like anyone else. Write them as such. The Chucky show should take some notice. Tell me what Devin's character traits are other than he likes Jake. Little and Big John are the exact opposite of Devin, and so is Mindy from Scream 5. More characters like these, please. There is one area I would say 2018 is better than Kills, that being narratively. But 2018 also just takes the basic plot structure of the original and adds a little twist on it. So it makes sense that it's fairly strong. Kills is pretty fresh. The closest we've gotten to Kills narrative is Halloween 4, but they are trying very different things. 4 just has a few people gather around with shotguns against Myers, and they know exactly what Myers wants: Jamie. In Kills, they are on a wild goose chase until the very end of the movie. And it's not just a few people, it's a good portion of the town. The mob in Halloween 4 is also treated more as like a hero role, while the mob in Kills is written more as a sort of gray area. They're not necessarily exactly a great thing. That being said, Kills is a pretty simple movie. I wouldn't say this makes it bad though. It knows exactly what it wants to be, and in my opinion, for the most part, accomplishes that. It wants to be a fun slasher movie roller coaster that sets Myers up more for the last movie. If you compare this to Scream 5, I think what Kills does well is a lot more apparent. The Scream franchise has always been a story of whodunits. As everyone should know, to make a good mystery, you have to be able to get a good grasp on all the characters. In Scream 5, you get to know about a fourth of its cast. So when the ghost faces are revealed, you're like, really? That was one of the ghost faces. One of them is extremely obvious because you spend too much time with them, and the other you just get no time with them. I forgot most of these characters even existed. Now, if this was just a fun little slasher like Halloween Kills, it would be fine. You don't need to know all of these characters, but it's a mystery movie. When a fun little roller coaster slasher movie establishes characters better than yours, I think there's an issue with your mystery movie. The Scream movies have always parodied horror tropes. The original laughs at these and has a lot of moments that play on knowing the tropes. Scream 5 mentions these requel tropes, but then continues to just be a standard requel on its own. I like Scream 5. I couldn't help but notice these flaws when people were screaming, get it? Scream? How good the film was when I personally felt it fell short on a lot of things Halloween Kills did better. Of course, there is a side plot in Kills as well, and that's what I would say isn't as well executed. that being the Cobblepot. I briefly went over it before, so I won't go over it too much, but basically this guy was used to mirror real life events where angry people wanted things to change, but in doing so they hurt people that were completely uninvolved in the situation. Now believe it or not, Mr. Cobblepot only appears in 2 scenes. The first one at the bar and the hospital. I think the first scene is perfectly fine. It's the hospital scene that takes it too far. The idea of Cobblepot is fine. The issue is the movie rubs it in your face a little too much in the hospital scene. If it was a tad bit more subtle with the idea mentioned before as a possibility, I think it would have worked a lot better. That and just letting the last scene speak for itself, or just bringing Laurie's speech down just a tad bit more. It's just a bit too preachy for a Halloween movie. I like the idea of putting messages in there. Just don't have Laurie screaming it into our ears. And no need for big boy pile of sheepmen. It's too much. Myers has only killed a group of firefighters and a handful of teens and adults at this point. This reaction is too much. I get people joining the cause. People have definitely heard of Michael Myers in the boring town of Haddonfield. The Shape story would stand out. Families would want to protect their little ones. But there are so many people in this hospital. Just too much. In the ambush scene, we get a much more reasonable amount of people. Let's talk the actual kills. Every single kill in this movie offers something different and exciting. Light to the throat, window crunch, shish kebab, power saw, stab to the eyes, simple multiple stabs, funny car stab to the armpit, gouge out eyes. One of the best kills in the franchise. It's so insane how so many kills are in this film, yet all feel so different from each other. You get your more suspenseful moments as well that build up to these. Little John and Big John, Cameron, and the flashback. In a lot of these, Mikey just shows up and massacres everyone though. But there are some moments that are allowed to breathe. Speaking of that, the movie could use a bit more tension for sure though. It's a lot of fun constantly. Every other scene is a moment of action. And while its plot is simple, I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing. At least not for me. It does a fantastic job at giving a faithful to the original take on an angry Michael Myers, while also expanding on him a little bit without ruining the mystery of what makes the Shape tick. A plethora of likable characters and a ton of thrilling scenes, Halloween Kills is so much better than a lot of people give it credit for. While it's no masterpiece, it is a solid Halloween sequel. For me personally, it's one of my favorites in the franchise. It's usually either this or 2018 as my personal favorite sequel. I'm hoping this video will have some people appreciate the movie more, but of course, everyone is entitled for their opinion, and this has been mine. Thank you all so much for watching and making it this far. If you liked, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content like this. I'll be covering the Evil Dead movie soon before the game comes out. If you'd like to see that, subscribe so you won't miss out. Take care, and I hope to see you in the next one.